New death factory. Russia is mass-producing drones. NATO under threat. Enemy UAVs are already in the skies over the EU. Will there be a response? Sensational. Epic sweep by Ukrainian defenders. The assault caught on camera. The Ukrainian armed forces have liberated a village near Sumy. The Kremlin is in hysteria. Putin is pleading. Kim is sending soldiers to Russia. Cannon fodder from North Korea is on the way. On the morning of the 28th of July, residents of Vilnius woke up to a police report about a drone that had flown from Belarus into Lithuanian territory.
It could have been either a Geran 2 or, accordingly, a Gerber. In my opinion, it appears to be a provocation on the Russian side and the use of a Gerber drone.
By the way, this is not the first time military drones have crossed into Lithuania's borders. At that time, officials initially suspected that it was a Shahid, which Russia uses in the war against Ukraine. However, it was later revealed that it was a Russian Gerbera drone that crossed the Lithuanian border, which looks similar to the Shahed and is designed to deceive air defense systems.
This is clearly a provocation primarily on the part of the Russian Federation, and it is no coincidence that the launch site is said to be the territory of the Republic of Belarus. In other words, the Russian Federation is trying to escalate tensions along the borders with NATO countries, once again signaling that a possible scenario for joint Russian-Belarusian exercises on the territory of Belarus could involve the implementation of the so-called Suwalki corridor.
It seems that very soon there will be even more drones in Russia. American analysts have published satellite images showing that the occupying country is expanding its drone manufacturing plant in Alabuga. The images show dozens of new buildings, including new dormitories and production facilities. Journalists have calculated that the facilities will be able to accommodate about 40,000 workers, which will help significantly increase production. But where the Russians are really banging their heads against the border is in the Sumy region. It has become known that Ukrainian defense forces have officially liberated the village of Kondrativka in the Sumy region.
The Ukrainian defense forces have seized the tactical initiative in the Sumy direction. The plans of the Russian political leadership to create a so-called buffer zone with an advanced depth of 10 to 20 kilometers have failed. Moreover, after a series of successful counterattacks, including the deoccupation of Kondrativka, the deoccupation of Andriivka, and the successful conduct of military operations in the Yunakivka area, Ukrainian defense forces have created the conditions necessary to push Russian occupation troops out of the Sumy region.
Recently, the Russians have somewhat increased their use of armored vehicles against Ukrainian positions, and since the beginning of July 2025, they have carried out a series of smaller mechanized assaults at the platoon level in the Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War note.
This clearly indicates a significant time crunch for the Russian military and political leadership, a pressing issue. This is about, let me remind you, the so-called 60 days of the Russian offensive. Information about the latest Russian deadlines, I remind you, appeared in Western media after the conversation between the American president and the Russian dictator. Moreover, according to Western media, it was Putin himself who named 60 days as the deadline for reaching the administrative borders of the Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions, which have been incorporated into the Russian Federation by decree of the Russian dictator. The documented use of heavy armored vehicles, particularly during the recent assault near Sivers, is a vivid indication that the occupiers are well aware that they have catastrophically little time left to improve their tactical position on the front.
Russian dictator Vladimir Putin stated that 2 out of the 5 divisions, which have been planned since December 2022, will be created already this year. As a result, the strike power and combat capabilities of the fleet will significantly increase, Putin reports.
Putin's recent statement is yet another clear admission, a stark admission of the profound inability of the regular military units of the Russian Federation's ground forces to actually significantly influence the overall nature of combat operations within the sovereign territory of our country. At present, the ground forces units are mainly used for so-called banzai attacks or meat assaults.
North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un has decided to help his friend Putin. Therefore, Pyongyang may send additional troops to Russia as early as August 2025. In exchange for strengthening the Russian army, North Korea is receiving satellite launch and missile guidance technologies from Moscow. Urgent. The Kremlin is in a panic. The Ukrainian armed forces are breaking through the front line and counterattacking. Enemy equipment is burning. FPV drones are hitting their targets precisely. One top commander and about a dozen occupiers eliminated. Panic in the swamps. The railway is at a standstill. Airports are closed. The hellish alliance of North Korea and Russia equals the war of the future. Pyongyang has already begun a new mobilization of troops to send to Russia. Meat grinder assaults in exchange for technology. Watch all the fiery details right now.
Cannon fodder in exchange for technology. North Korea may send additional troops to Russia to take part in the war against Ukraine as early as August. In return, Moscow promises Pyongyang technology for launching satellites and guiding missiles.
Right now, the main idea behind sending personnel
by the North Korean regime to Moscow. For the North Korean regime, the primary and overarching goal is to gain extensive experience in effectively waging this new and evolving type of technological warfare.
South Korean intelligence believes that Russia is planning a major offensive operation against Ukraine in August, and the possible involvement of North Korean units is directly related to these plans. Moreover, Pyongyang has already begun a new mobilization of troops to send to Russia. In addition, North Korea is supplying Russia with artillery shells and missiles, and in return receives technical assistance, according to military experts. However, even without North Korean reinforcements, the occupiers are trying to advance on the front. Russian troops continue to apply pressure and over the past day have advanced in two regions, Kharkiv and Donetsk. Particularly heavy fighting is currently taking place near the Volchansky Khutora in the Kharkiv region, as well as near Yablonovka and Orekhovo in the Donetsk region. At the same time, a report from the Institute for the Study of War states that the Ukrainian armed forces have recently advanced in the Sumy region and in Kharkiv. In particular, sources linked to Ukrainian intelligence reported that Ukrainian defenders have retaken Kondratovka, located north of the city of Sumy. Meanwhile, Russian military correspondents claim that the Ukrainian armed forces have counterattacked near Varachin, Satki and Yunakovka. Ukrainian forces have recently advanced in the north of Sumy region and near Veliki Burluk and Lyman. Russian troops have recently made advances near Siversk, Toretsk, Novopavlivka and Velika Novosilka. However, such minor gains are coming at a very high cost for the occupiers. For example, for the first time in a long while, the Russians deployed armored vehicles in the Pokrovsk direction. But here's the problem: the column was destroyed by precise artillery and drone fire. First, the vehicles at the front of the column were hit by artillery, after which the UAV operators took over. Despite the fact that the Russian armored vehicles were equipped with anti-drone protection, enemy equipment was set on fire and the advance was halted by FPV drone strikes and drops. It is also reported that during the repulsion of the occupiers' attacks, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to eliminate Colonel Lebedev, the commander of the 83rd Motorized Rifle Regiment of the 69th Motorized Rifle Division of the Russian Army, who was leading the assault on the Kharkiv region. The occupier was specifically responsible for that new direction near the village of Milov, where the Russians began their offensive a few weeks ago. As a result, yet another assault attempt ended with the enemy losing their commander.
You know, if we talk about every Russian swan there as a swan lake for each of them, that I can definitely guarantee on behalf of the defense forces. The commander of the assault regiment, of course we can see that dealing with these Russians is by no means getting any easier.
Things aren't going any better for the invaders in the skies either. In the past 24 hours, our soldiers managed to bring down at least 17 Russian reconnaissance drones. Over the past day, the occupiers have also lost quite a bit of their heavy equipment. Not a day goes by without strikes even inside Russia itself. Because of our drone attack, railway operations there have been disrupted, trains are delayed, and airports are not functioning. This time, the strike hit the Volgograd region. It is along this route that Russia transports military cargo to the front. Local Telegram channels are also publishing footage of a fire at the local oil depot. Hits were also recorded there, but the information has not been officially confirmed by Russia. In addition to the Volgograd region, explosions occurred in 12 other regions and in annexed Crimea. The Kremlin claimed that 99 drones were allegedly shot down. Due to the attack, more than 70 flights were cancelled or delayed at Pulkovo airport. And now a major announcement from Vilnius: Lithuania is helping Ukraine purchase an additional Patriot system. The country's defense minister announced the intention to join the procurement of American air defense systems for Kyiv. Lithuania plans to allocate up to 30 million euros to achieve this goal. Let me remind you, recently US President Donald Trump announced the transfer of Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine with the support of NATO countries, assuring that Kyiv would receive 17 such systems. And the first of them was provided to us by Germany. The Bundestag sent 3 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine and is negotiating the delivery of a 4th. In total, Berlin is ready to provide us with as many as 5 systems. There is also discussion about the possibility of Germany supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Shock. A new threat from the sky. Cheap and extremely dangerous. Italmas drones are back in action. A new wave of attacks on Sumy. The Kremlin is testing a killer drone on civilians. The occupiers have resurrected a failed drone for bloody terror. Watch all the details right now.
A new weapon of terror against civilians. Russia is testing its new drone on Ukrainian frontline cities. The UAVs are used most actively for strikes on Sumy.
Italmas, which in Udmurt means a flower from the buttercup family, continues the development of the Geran theme with internal combustion engines. But this is a completely domestic development, even though it somewhat resembles the Iranian Shaheds.
The Italmas drone, named after the closed Italmas shopping center in Izhevsk where it is assembled, first appeared back in 2023. However, at that time, the UAV showed rather low effectiveness. Now, the drone has been improved and is being tested again on peaceful Ukrainians.
There's nothing mysterious or enigmatic about it. People who have professional training say in engines, if you set the right task regarding the aerodynamic design, you'll get a properly developed structure.
Essentially, the Italmas is a simplified version of the Iranian Shahed. It flies a shorter distance and carries less explosives.
It's designed for more limited range operations. That is, it's for targets over 200 kilometers away with an increased warhead.
So, is this also a kamikaze drone?
Yes, it's also a kamikaze.
We're talking about a flight range of up to 200 kilometers, a speed of about 150 kilometers per hour, and a warhead weight of up to 25 kilograms. But its main advantage, according to experts, is its simplicity and low production cost.
If you add it all up, the engines cost about $1,000, the frame well at most, including labor, about $100, and the radio electronic equipment, well, that's something else somewhere, but no more than $200 or $300. So the maximum cost of such a drone is about $1,500. At the same time, the manufacturing quality is poor.
But that's more than enough to create problems for our air defense forces. The occupiers launched the Italmas in attacks together with Shahids, Gerans and others. This way, they become an additional burden on our radars and mobile fire teams. If they miss the drone, the cost of destroying it is many times higher than the cost of the target itself.
After all, you don't know what it's carrying or what it's doing. You just know for sure that it needs to be shot down. When you shoot it down, you don't count the money or think about how much it costs. So if all the machine guns miss, then you have to shoot it down with a missile afterwards.
It's worth noting that according to the stated specifications, the upgraded Italmas is equipped with an artificial intelligence system. However, it's not specified exactly what kind.
Artificial intelligence and the ability to control a swarm. Well, artificial intelligence can be of different levels, purposes and uses, but the first and simplest is machine vision. This is one of the elements that can handle the task of image recognition. That's the first task. The second task is when the system can detect targets, identify them, assign a ranking deciding what to strike first and what to strike second.
But even that isn't the limit, analysts say. Thanks to Chinese components, albeit in small quantities, the Russians have managed to integrate truly modern systems into some UAVs.
When the system can do all this, when everything works, and these drones can even communicate with each other and there are different communication algorithms, there can be a leader and followers, meaning one says, do as I do, and all the others perform the same maneuver as it does.
And it's not hard to guess where that maneuver will be directed. A store, a residential building, a bus stop. Experts claim that the ITALMAS is not suitable for military targets. Firstly, it has a relatively small warhead for striking fortified targets, and secondly, its low speed prevents it from being able to hunt mobile targets. At the same time, analysts say that the recent solution adopted by the Ukrainian armed forces against Russian drones in general is also perfectly suited for the ITALMAS. Interceptor drones, which have already been successfully shooting down Shaheds, are far superior to this UAV and can undoubtedly destroy it just as effectively.
That's all for now. For more fiery news from the front, tune in to our next episode.